Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dave, and I've been working on building on a portfolio of ETFs that pay every single month. We're going to make it rain dividends all month long. Now, we've covered several different categories, but now I'm to one that people get really excited about. It's the covered call ETFs. Now, there's several in this category that I do not like. I'll point out some of those, but I'll talk about the ones that I do like as well, and I've covered them a few times on this channel, so I'll link up those as well as we go through these. So if that is what you're looking for, and we're going to build out this thing, it's going to rain dividends all month long. If that is what you're looking for, please stick around. So I'm just going to jump right in and start talking about these 4 covered call ETFs that I do like. There's plenty that I do not like, and I'll point those out as I go along. It's typically because the expense ratio is too high or the strategy is just robotic and not flexible. So with something like JEPI, there's some intelligence behind it. They've got a group back there that's doing it over at JP Morgan. And they're selling out of the money calls, which I like that idea, and they're trying to generate this income. So we do have some upside potential. And that's one of the reasons that I'll buy it. Even though I do these strategies myself, I still will put some money into something like JEPI to generate some income for me, because they're going to yield lots of income, but we don't want to put too much into something like this. And that's also, we're going to cover into DIVO. And just to go into that, they're selective about when they sell covered calls. So you're going to pay a little bit more in the expense ratio for that one, but there's intelligence behind it, right? They're thinking through, and they're executing. They've executed well over the years. So therefore, they've earned some of my money. Whereas a lot of these QYLD selling out the money calls, just like a robot, not something that I'm interested in doing. So anyway, back to JEPI. You can see it, performance has been off a little bit, but it does have some upside potential. So they've got a holdings-wise, pretty conservative stocks in the portfolio, and then they use equity-linked notes. And again, we saw some stress this week in the banking sector out there in Silicon Valley, right? I don't know if you've been following along with that, but even though they stress test these banks, they can't always get it together. Now with ELNs, they're going to be using selective banks all around the world. So there is that risk with something like JEPI, where they get involved with the wrong bank with one of their ELN products. So something to consider. So you can see the holdings charting. You're not going to be able to get too much information. We just see a 1-year chart, and we see that it's held up pretty darn well against the S&P 500. This is just the price return. But if we go out to total return, you're going to see, oh, okay, it's actually outperformed the S&P, treading water right now, and it's done okay in a down market. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But that's JEPI. And the other one that goes along with JEPI follows the same thing, but whereas JEPI buys mostly S&P 500 stocks, we're going to go over to JP Morgan, and we're going to see that that celebrates everything on the Qs or the NASDAQ. Let's say NASDAQ. Sometimes I interchange those two. If I ever confuse you, that's what I'm thinking up here. So anyway, JEPQ, on the other hand, same expense ratio, different set of stocks, right? So over here, you're going to see Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, and Amazon. But you should see kind of the same dividend rate or yield. Okay, so we're at about 11.23, 12% right now. That's a little high for JEPI and JEPQ. If things in the market, I think, settle down, you'll probably see that come back down. So I wouldn't expect that all the time going forward. And we've kind of seen that for the last few distributions that they've had. It's fallen back a little bit. So both good products. Brother and sister here. One's on the S&P 500, the other one's on the NASDAQ. But both that in small doses, I think you could add to your portfolio. Neither one has performed that well, but they do offer some upside potential, and they offer all that income. So in a down market, you'll be getting that income stripped off while you see your stocks fall into oblivion, right? Isn't that great? So 2 products that I would consider for my portfolio. And I've done reviews of all of these products that you've seen so far, JEPI, JEPQ, and now DIVO, which is from Amplify. It's the Amplify Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. And it's been around a while. You've got a little bit higher of an expense ratio of 0.55%. And it pays about 5.3%. So they're more selective with this one. They buy a group of good stocks, right? So low volatility stocks, and then they're going to pick and choose where they're going to sell their calls against this. And they've done a good job of that over the years. So one that you can strip off a little bit of income, and you'll also have a basket of stocks that have the potential for growth over a period of time. So that's one of the reasons I like DIVO. Again, I'll link my full videos for all of these above, but just kind of working through these so we can build out this portfolio. But that's DIVO. You got Seeking Alpha saying buy. You got Quant Radiance saying buy. We can go over to charting. We can look for a 3-year on this one, I believe. I don't know if we go out to 5 years yet, do we? We do go out to 5 years. All right, so we got 5 years of information here, and you can see versus the S&P 500, it's underperformed, 16.4% versus the S&P of about 40%. Now, if we factor back in all those dividends that we've received, wow, look at that. Suddenly, we've moved up ahead of the S&P 500, up to 56.88%. So over the last 5 years, DIVO's held in there quite well using this option strategy and selling these calls against selective stocks. So one of the reasons I like DIVO. And my final product here is IDVO from Amplify. This is the Amplify International Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. So again, think of this as the sister to the brother of DIVO. Now, I still have some of my own research I got to do to put into IDVO, and I'll be coming out with a full video on IDVO as we get a little bit more information. But again, I expect some kind of the same performance, but internationally, and doing the same kind of thing that DIVO is doing. So just to kind of touch base, this is a 4th one, but I love the idea. Again, I like international, and I like having that as a portion of my portfolio, just like I like bonds as we build this whole thing out. So we'll check out IDVO as we get more information. We can glance over here at the holdings, and you're going to see the breakdown here, which is probably more important because a lot of these we're probably not going to be real familiar with, right? So we're trusting a little bit in this case that the balance between energy, financials, basic material technology, consumer defensive will give us a nice return. If you go all the way down to the bottom here, I think it'll show up. Yep. Total number of holdings, 84. So they've got this select basket of international stocks, and they're selling calls against this, and they're giving us a little bit of that income off the top. Again, put all 4 of these together, and we're pretty darn diverse in this covered call strategy, right? We can balance this out and add some income every single month to our portfolio. So now this is just me pulling together a lot of this information onto one sheet. There are some assumptions on here, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But ultimately, the goal is to bring all these different funds together, all these different ETFs and the REITs that we've just talked about. And we're going to have one whole big summary of monthly paying ETFs and REITs that we can kind of reference back to and see if we can build something out of it. So in this case, again, $100,000 invested. What is my monthly pre-tax estimated distribution? Now, pre-tax is really important, so we're going to have to figure out our taxes if we're in a taxable account. But here are our 4. And I just said category here, so take that with a grain of salt. But we got, this is based on the S&P. This is based on what I call the Qs, right, the NASDAQ. This is based on select U.S. stocks, covered call. And then we got the international flavor here on IDVO. Here's the expense ratio. So pretty low overall. These are a little bit testy, but not too bad. Again, they've had good performance with DIVO, so I'm willing to give them a little bit of my hard-earned money. And then you can see the yield, and again, take that with a grain of salt here, that this is probably going to come down, and this will probably come down. And this is assumed at 5%. Where will we end up at? I'm not really sure. We only have a few months worth of information so far. But if you put $100,000 into each one of these, you would end up with $12,000 or $12,060 annually, or just over $1,000 currently at 12.06%. And JEPI, 935 in JEPQ, DIVO 441, and IDVO 416, assuming 5%. And likewise here, I think JEPQ, we're still waiting on a full year's worth of information too. So this could be, I'd almost expect this to be slightly higher than JEPI, but I expect both of them to come down a little bit. So just a quick summary there. And again, bear with me for over the next week or so. We'll pull all this together, and then we're going to do some asset allocation and things like that, so we can kind of figure out exactly where we stand and what kind of income and what kind of performance we can get over a long period of time. And boom, check another one off the list. So what do we have now? We've got bond ETFs covered. We talked about REITs. We've got our income flavor here with our covered calls. And of course, we've got our straight up stock ETFs that pay us every single month. So again, we're going to pull all this together. I think maybe one more, looking at some alternatives. Maybe we'll just throw those all out. But I've had a lot of questions, so I'll try to summarize all of those in one video. And then we're going to have the ultimate monthly paying ETF portfolio here, and we'll see what we can play around with. So any questions on any of this, please ask down below. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. Whoop.